Hey everybody! So we are continuing along with our season previews heading into the 2019-2020 season, and today we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning. Before we get into the video, I just quickly want to say if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please hit that subscribe button and follow along for all my hockey content. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the like button. That really helps out the channel a lot and is greatly appreciated. So, Tampa Bay. I've been waiting to do Tampa Bay because I wanted to see how the Brayden Point situation got resolved and if they made any more moves to resolve their salary cap situation because they are right up against it cap-wise. And I think either yesterday or the day before, a report came out that Tampa Bay and Brayden Point were closing in on an 8-year contract at $8 million per year for Brayden Point. I don't know necessarily the truth, how much, it's just a report. I don't know how close they are to a deal or not. Maybe, because I'm recording this a few days before it's actually going to post, maybe a deal will be done by the time this video even posts. Or maybe there's absolutely nothing to it at all. But there has been reports that it was going to be an 8x8 deal for Brayden Point. And Tampa would barely be able to afford that, but would be able to afford that at least for this year. Tampa certainly is not out of the woods salary cap-wise, not even close for beyond this year, when they have Eric Chernak, Mikhail Sergachev, Anthony Cirelli, and Matthew Joseph all will be restricted free agents next summer, and with everyone signing long-term deals, there will be very little cap space to work with for the Lightning, but it looks like they're going to be able to squeeze by for this year at least with this current team, salary cap wise. So the Lightning last year, best team in the league by far, incredibly good regular season, record-tying number of wins. And then they fell flat on their face in the playoffs, got swept out by a wild card team that barely made the playoffs in the first round in Columbus, and became a huge laughingstock and the poster child for choking in the NHL playoffs. Heading into this season, still very talented roster. They did have to get rid of JT Miller because of salary cap issues. And they also could not sign Adam Ernie because of not fitting him under the cap. So they traded him to Detroit. So they have lost a little bit off of this team. But still the main guys, Stamkos, Kucherov, Johnson, Hedman, McDonough, they're all still there. Vasilevsky's still in goal. The core of this team is still very much intact. Once again, this should be one of the best teams in the league again this year. They should be a Stanley Cup contender once again this year. And honestly, after what happened in the playoffs last year, I expect them to come back with a real chip on their shoulder. If they don't, then I think it's time to think about maybe a coaching change. Because if getting swept out in the first round when you were the President's Trophy winning, record-tying NHL #1 seed, doesn't make you come back with a vengeance the next year, I don't know what else you could possibly want to make you want to be even better next year. So I expect Tampa to come back with a chip on their shoulder and really make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. So let's look at the lineup here. For the lineup, I used a combination of cap-friendly depth charts and daily face-off line combinations to put the lines together. For the most part, I think we have a pretty good idea of what this lineup is going to look like. There could be potentially a couple of switches here or there, but overall, I think with Tampa, we have a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. Top line, Andre Palat, Steven Stamkos, and Nikita Kucherov. I mean, absolutely electric top line, incredible amount of offense there. Interesting, when you look at this lineup, down the left wing side, the left side, with JT Miller gone, that kind of shifts everyone up a little bit. Palat now goes from a second liner to a first liner. Yanni Gourde or Killorn, I think Yanni Gourde and Killorn are kind of switchable in the second and third line spots. Right now I have Gourde on the second line and Killorn on the third, but I think you could see those flip-flop multiple times throughout the season, depending on who's playing better. And then Donick Martell, I guess, would be your fourth-line left wing at this point, with Adam Ernie gone and everyone else having to shift up. So they definitely did lose a little bit down the left side, that's for sure. However, still an absolutely electric offensive team. Second line, Gord, Braden Point, assuming a contract gets done, and Tyler Johnson. That line, obviously, Point had 91 points last season. That line will be able to put up a ton of points as well. Third line, Alex Killorn, Anthony Cirelli, and Matthew Joseph. Killorn, obviously the veteran on that line. Joseph and Cirelli are both 22. Had pretty good seasons for third liners last year. I absolutely expect that again this year. And then the fourth line, Cedric Paquette is still the center. However, pretty much everyone who's played on his wing in the past 2 years is gone. Whether it's Adam Ernie, whether it's Chris Kunitz, whether it's Ryan Callahan, whoever else. Now it's Patrick Maroon coming over in free agency, which I think is a tremendous, tremendous addition to this lineup. And Donick Martell, I guess, slotted on that left side. I want to talk about the Pat Maroon addition here quickly, because that, I think, was a great pickup for Tampa Bay. He gives them an element of toughness and grit that they have not had in their lineup in a number of years. And he's that big body powerhouse, power forward guy who can physically dominate other players. He isn't afraid of anybody. He's willing to fight anybody in the league. And I think that's just something that this Tampa Bay team hasn't really had. They've been in a similar situation to Pittsburgh. Tampa's kind of taken a toughness by committee approach to the physicality part of the game. And they haven't had any like true fighter. They've had, guys willing to go, unexpected guys fighting that you wouldn't necessarily think of as fighters, but they've kind of had this team toughness by committee approach to the way that they've played. What Pat Maroon does is gives them a legitimate guy in that lineup that can go with anybody on the other team, can physically match up with anybody on the other team. And I think about, when they play someone like Washington and who has Tom Wilson, Pat Maroon can match up physically with Tom Wilson. Pat Maroon, even though they only play Vegas twice a year, can match up physically with Ryan Reeves on Vegas. Like he is as tough as they come as far as guys left in the NHL. So I just think he adds a great element of physicality, grit, and toughness that this team hasn't really had. And that's going to help them out a lot, I think. He's a great fourth-line addition. Moving on to the defense, we have Victor Hedman, and I don't know who's going to play with Hedman, but I put Kevin Shattenkirk there for now because I think that could be something that really helps Shattenkirk, who's had a really tough last couple of years, has not played well, really fell out of favor with the Rangers. If you put him with a guy like Victor Hedman, who's a top-tier elite NHL defenseman, a Norris Trophy winning defenseman, that I think will just help stabilize his career. He won't have to do as much. He can focus on making his game better instead of trying to make everyone around him better, like I think he had to do in New York a little bit. And I just think that if you put Shattenkirk with Victor Hedman, you could see glimpses of the old St. Louis Blues Kevin Shattenkirk come back. And he could end up having a really solid year for the Lightning. Second pair, Ryan McDonagh and Eric Chernak. I'm a huge, huge fan of Eric Chernak. He's a really tough kid. Big, 6'4", 225, not afraid to fight, not afraid to get involved with the roughhousing and physicality. Just great, tough defensive defenseman that I really, really like on that back end. And then your third pair, Braden Coburn and Mikhail Sergachev, who will also get a lot of offensive time on the power play as well. Good defense core, very, very good defense core. Certainly, definitely a top four to be afraid of. When everyone's healthy, with Hedman, McDonagh, Shattenkirk, Chernak, that's a very good top four. You've got an offensive guy in Sergachev who can come in and play offensive situations. Coburn, a sturdy veteran back there. And they have a bunch of other depth guys as well for when injuries happen that can step in and do a good job, a good enough job in your bottom part of your defense core to at least hold the fort while someone's out injured. In goal, Andrei Vasilevsky returning as a starter, and Curtis McElhaney has been brought in from Carolina to be the backup goaltender, so they are certainly more than okay at goaltender. Vasilevsky won the Vezina last year, and McElhaney had a very good year with the Hurricanes and continues to put a very, very good career as a lifelong backup goalie together. Overall, this team is pretty stacked still, even with the salary cap casualties like JT Miller. This team's still stacked. Unbelievably good offensively, very strong defense, top-end goaltender. Once again, will be one of the top teams in the league. We'll just see if they can do it in the playoffs. Unlike last year, we know they're going to be really good in the regular season. There's just no way for them not to be. There's too much talent on this roster for them not to be good in the regular season. As far as extra players go, they have a bunch of depth defensemen. Luke Schenn, Jan Ruda, Luke Witkowski all could see time on that defense core. Luke Witkowski is somebody who can come in, play as a defenseman or as a winger on the fourth line up front. So that gives him, he's a little more versatile that way, and I think that gives him a chance to maybe play. I don't see him really coming in as a defenseman with this team. I mean, he's probably like the 9th or 10th defenseman on the depth chart. If somebody gets injured defensively, I think you're going to see Ruda come in. You might see some Luke Schenn. I don't think you're really going to see Witkowski as a defenseman. I do think, however, you could see him on a wing, because outside of these starters in the forward group, they don't really have a lot of forward depth. Jamel Smith is a possibility, although he spent almost all of last year in the AHL. Corey Conacher is a possibility, but he's been in the AHL for a couple years now and hasn't seen much NHL action. And then you have Witkowski, who can play defense or wing. There's not a whole lot of forward depth there with this team, so I think you're more likely to see Witkowski come in as a fourth-line winger than you are see him as a defenseman. They do have defensive depth. So overall, this team looks fantastic on paper. Should be once again a President's Trophy contending team, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, maybe the best team in the league again. It's certainly a possibility. The talent is unbelievable, and just hope they get that deal done with Braden Point, because he is a huge part of that team. And if he were to not be there for the start of the season, that would certainly be a hit. That's 90-plus points out of your lineup. That is a tough pill to swallow, but I think a deal is going to get done. And, yeah, we'll see what Tampa does this year, but once again, tremendous lineup. Should be a Stanley Cup contender. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.